Yeah. Hi everyone, Slamthony out Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this They Might Be Giants album, a classic review, in fact. They Might Be Giants, Lincoln. Yep, classic review of the 1988 sophomore album from New York pop absurdists, They Might Be Giants, a duo masterminded by singing, producing, songwriting, multi-instrumentalist duo John Linnell and John Flansburgh, or simply the Johns, who have had one of the oddest and most unique trajectories of any group in pop or rock music history, from college radio phenomenon that partially promoted their songs by way of a phone number that people could dial and listen to a song of theirs over the phone, to semi-famous geek rock jesters whose music appealed to both adults and kids, who would then go on to record more albums, but then also television theme songs, children's music, eventually ending up in the musical stable of the Disney Corporation, and now they've more or less settled on their trademark sound, releasing new albums every once in a while that kind of feel like they just don't really have anything else to prove at this point, because certainly they don't. It's kind of miraculous what the Johns were able to achieve together as a duo for 40 plus years, mainly because their music has such a specifically nerdy appeal to it that doesn't usually spell out commercial success. And when I say nerdy appeal, I don't mean in a sad, puppy, angsty Weezer type way, or even in a Hollywood movie kind of way where a character is portrayed as nerdy, but when they take their glasses off, they're actually really sexy. No, I mean more in a way where they're going to sing about puppets and head injuries and chemicals, as well as end one of their records off, Apollo 18, with a medley of 5 to 15 second songs that give the B-side of Abbey Road a run for its money. It's like that kind of nerdy, which only a select few of artists over the years of modern music history have been able to angle into these long-term and successful careers. And They Might Be Giants isn't just one of those few, they're also one of the biggest. And much of their story starts with records like Lincoln, which, to put it simply, was released during a prime era for the duo's output, as their first 5 records are pretty much all bangers. And this one here sits in a very interesting place. It's not as disjointed or as rough around the edges as their debut, which did have some incredible songs on it, but at points in the second half of this record, it would diverge into so many deep layers of absurdity. Some of the songs felt like straight up novelty, or just really couldn't be enjoyed in a conventional way. Lincoln also doesn't have the bigger budget or slight commercial sheen of its follow-up Flood, which was really the duo's big commercial breakout project. By comparison, this album here is more of a happy medium. It sees the Johns still in a pretty raw and quirky state, plus you're getting a lot of bang for your buck with 18 tracks that cover an extremely wide array of emotions, themes, topics, musical styles, as well as levels of surrealism and childlike wonder. And you can hear how wide that range is just on the first 2 tracks of this LP alone. The opener, Anna Eng, is a staccato rocker that reads in part like a song of love, regret, longing, and desire, loaded with all of this disorienting imagery that makes it feel like the song's core emotions are difficult to know, which I think is part of the song's fun, that it's not so on the nose. It's not so obviously he said, she said, which is fine because I would much rather ponder the feelings fueling this track in the context of water spinning the wrong way out of a sink. Then there's the next track, Cowtown, which does have a much clearer message, but it's one that you don't often hear because it's a song of travel, of journey to a far-off place where cows live, Under the Sea. There's a real cute, endearing gallop to the instrumental on this one. That is until we hit these dark, crunchy passages of guitar and like honking synthesizers that feel totally mismatched with everything else on the track, but also kind of part of the fun. Which I would like to say generally the instrumentals on this record are sometimes bare bones, sometimes a little rickety and clearly built out of instrumentation and recording equipment that was readily available at the time. Some of the guitar mixing is a little aggressive, not the best. There's a lot of instrumentation throughout this LP that is very apparently fake and synthetic, and a lot of the drum machine or sequenced beats throughout this thing are kind of rigid. It's not the most organic or human sounding music sometimes, but the Johns really used these somewhat odd and lopsided aesthetics to their benefit to define a sound and a style that was unique to them. Recording tracks that didn't just feel like songs, they felt like antics. And those antics continue on to Lie Still Little Bottle, which is a weird, loungy, vocal jazz piece where John Flansburgh, despite his vocal limitations, is really acting in the role, selling it against some finger snaps and synthy upright bass and horn hits. Then Purple Tupe is some super celebratory accordion rock. Of all the sounds you typically get on a They Might Be Giants album, this particular vibe and instrumental makeup feels most specifically like them. As some other tracks the duo tends to indulge in feel often like they are creating a bizarro version of something else. But again, this track here feels like they're delivering their true sound as it would define numerous key singles throughout the They Might Be Giants catalog. Be that Particle Man, or Put Your Hand Inside the Puppet Head, or The Statue Got Me High. But yeah, between the bright rhythm guitars, the expressive vocals, the punchy beats, the lyrical imagery, it's just the definition of weirdo fun. Songs deeper into the track list like Cage and Aquarium are both zany but also deeply unsettling, with their honking and plucky synth loops and refrains of "Yawn as your plane goes down in flames." It's not the longest or most fully fleshed out song on the record, that's for sure, but sometimes it's these shorter detour type tracks that are so funny and so unexpected, they sear themselves deep into my psyche even faster than the longer cuts. Piece of dirt, that is what I'm standing on today. He wants a shoehorn, the kind with teeth, cause he knows there's no such thing. Meanwhile, many of the longer cuts to come further down the track list, they have descriptions and feelings that border on profound but also nightmarish, like Where Your Eyes Don't Go, for example, which feels like some misshapen synth pop, whose lyrics make me feel like I'm having a fucking stroke. Trying to process what John is singing on this song, I'm just like, sorry, what? And if that doesn't make you feel insane enough, there is a weird instrumental bridge on this track where they break into like a detuned melodic rendition of Someone's in the Kitchen with Dinah, which, yeah, is just a nice touch. There's also Pencil Rain, which is a track of epic proportions and is about a grand and bloody war involving, yes, pencils. There's infantry and marching snares and militaristic horns, images of explosions and lead flying, and they look out for number 2. Yeah, I mean, They Might Be Giants hold a special place in my head and heart as being the only group to ever force me to imagine a war with pencils. The World's Address is another great track and ballad on the record that has a Latin flair to it between its piano parts and horns. The performance and vocals come across as very serious and impassioned, but the lyrics are just loaded with puns that make you wonder what exactly Flansburgh is upset about. Is it the state of the world that he lives in, or does it have something more to do with clothes? Maybe it's all about the line, It's a sad pun that reflects a sadder mess, because honestly, that is what it feels like. Moving on to I've Got a Match, which is one of my favorites here. It's a slightly jangly rocker that on its surface sounds lovesick and borderlines almost on being some 60s hippie type shit. But digging deeper into the lyrics, the track actually feels more like a song about having difficulty connecting with emotions of love, maybe even on a large scale, and instead desiring maybe the ability to not be perceived or not be sensitive or not be kind of comprehended emotionally, or at least that's how I read it. Even if it's not spelled out super clearly, I think They Might Be Giants don't get enough credit for diving into some really nuanced and unique emotional concepts and ideas on some of their tracks, be that with interesting approaches like the sense of betrayal on Santa's Beard, or on the track They'll Need a Crane, where love and happiness are personified as very different things to illustrate that they are not one and the same. And sometimes falling out of love with someone or needing to break things off can feel like a very huge, explosive, and laborious process, one that would involve a crane with a wrecking ball. The album ends off pretty strong with tracks like Snowball in Hell, which is really all about existing in a horrible place in your life, where you are also short on options too, as we are given lyrics like Side Effects or Drug Trip, Avalanche or Roadblock, Money I Owe, Money I A. Really, what's the difference? Not to mention, if it wasn't for Disappointment, I Wouldn't Have Any Appointment is one of my favorite bars in any They Might Be Giants song, period. And then the closing track might actually be my favorite They Might Be Giants song ever, Kiss Me Son of God, which I won't over-explain or spoil too much, but it has a killer, amazing chord progression, some great string harmonies, and the lyrics are essentially this character portrait sung from the standpoint of a character who reads pretty much like a dictatorial narcissist, and at this current day and age, reads as just being maybe a little bit too real. Okay, and there you go. That is my review of and why I love this weird, freaky ass little album. Sorry if this wasn't one of those reviews where I kind of go over the whole historical context of a band or an album with its influence and various influential ripples kind of petering out from it, but that's just really not the vibe this album gives off or the appeal of it for me. They Might Be Giants have always kind of existed in a weird tongue-in-cheek dimension of their own, and brings an energy, has a demeanor about it that is just not really copyable or replicable, even of the artists who I know are very vocal fans of them and their music. Open Mike Eagle being a prime one, for example. Their influence even on his music shows up in the most subtle and nuanced of ways. And if They Might Be Giants has any kind of long-term impact on popular music as a whole, it's not so much through finding a certain sound or aesthetic that everybody wanted to copy, over and over and over. It's more through their personality, through their boldness, through how willing they were to kind of plunge into the deep and do something different in a way that was just fearless, how consistently over the years they stuck to their guns and embraced creativity over conformity. And if anything makes They Might Be Giants special, it's that. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well over here next to my head. It's another video you can check out. Hit that upper link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, They Might Be Giants, forever.